This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com.
Alpha Natural Resources. Consistent with its Running Right process, Alpha is an energy company committed to being a leader in mine safety and an environmental steward. We fuel progress around the world. More information at alphanr.com.
Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, on Midlothian Turnpike in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Taking it to the streets and helping our community. Intelligent Illuminations. We make streetlights smart and give you control, providing secure point-to-point wireless solutions for roadway and area lighting, helping you manage, monitor, and control your streetlights. More information at ilooms.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com.
I just received a letter from a student who thanked me for instilling the love of math in him. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and if you're a special viewer who hasn't seen the show that often, this may be your first time to see Secretary Todd Haymore, but for regular viewers, Mr. Secretary, we appreciate your being back on. Just the second Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry.
Yes.
The combination of those, bringing forestry in. So we appreciate your being on to let our viewers around the Commonwealth know what's happening in agriculture and forestry.
Right.
And so start at any point that you want to start. Well, in fact, let me start.
Okay.
Just today, as we're having the conversation, a week or so before people are seeing the show, the news was that crabs are back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that might be a good starting point. And then how is that happening?
Yeah. First, thanks for having
Yes.
me back on. Always a pleasure to be with you, and also to talk to people around the Commonwealth about everything that's going on in the great industries of agriculture and forestry, the number one and number three largest industries in the state of Virginia.
1 and 3, yes.
Agriculture number one at $52 billion a year, and forestry number three at about $17 billion, and tourism right in the middle. And so you get a lot of agritourism play there, so real economic powerhouses.
Right.
Yes, this morning we saw that blue crab population was back up for the first time in 3 years. Great work that's going on by the Virginia Marine Resources Commission and private sector partners and others all around the Chesapeake Bay area. That's important. Obviously, the things that go on the front side are done by those researchers and the VMRC and Secretary of Natural Resources Molly Ward and a lot of folks on her team. But once those things come out of the water, we like to market them around the world. Both here in Virginia, but also everywhere else we can. So great news there. A lot of work. I think a lot of work still to be done. I know that the female side of the equation on the return, the population growth, is not as high as some people would like to see. I'm not an expert on that. So there's good news and mixed news, but the big thing is that I think some of the work that's being done in the Bay to have water quality improvement, make sure that we're doing all the right things as far as giving the crabs the best opportunity to grow and prosper are coming through. So got to give a round of applause to what the VMRC and others are doing to keep the crab population coming back.
And the water quality work, that's one of the initiatives from your secretariat that really certainly has a major impact on the bay.
It does. Farming, I have the farming community and all the agricultural products that we promote from that side, but we also promote all the marine products, the aquaculture. So it's we're really in the middle of all of on both sides of the equation, making sure that we're doing what we can to promote the agricultural commodities that are grown around the state, but also those marine products from the bay and other places. So yeah, the water quality work is important. Sam Towle, my deputy secretary, is leading that effort, working very closely with Secretary Molly Ward and Russ Baxter and all the agencies and natural resources. It's a great, great team effort. And I was with Secretary Ward last week. We spent the day together, and I think probably 80% of our conversation was about water quality issues, not just with Chesapeake Bay Water Basin, but other areas in the state, and the things that are going on with our farmers to be good stewards of the land, to be sure they're not only producing these great, great crops and products, but also making sure that they're doing everything that they can to keep the land and our natural resources and water as pristine as possible.
You know, in the same way that you all in the Secretariat, none of you is working in a silo, you're working together. The other Secretariat that you work with a great deal is Commerce and Trade, and between now and the time people will be seeing the show, you're heading off on a mission to get things set for an upcoming one by the governor.
Yeah, a lot of things going on with agriculture and forestry and commerce and trade. Secretary Jones and his team, particularly VEDP, Martin Briley and the great team at Economic Development Partnership, also Rita McClinney and Virginia Tourism Corporation.
Right.
Those two in particular are the ones that we partner with all the time. I'm on the board of VEDP. Governor McDonnell put me on that board several years ago through a bill that was put in the General Assembly. This past session, Governor McAuliffe and a couple of members of the General Assembly added me to the Virginia Tourism Corporation board. So a lot of partnership going on there here in Virginia, around the nation, but also around the world, which leads to we're going to, the governor and a team of us will go to Europe in June for a trade mission, but there's a lot of work that has to go on beforehand. So I'm going over and meeting up with the Virginia International Trade Marketing Specialist in Europe next week, and we'll spend a few days there building some bridges and hopefully trying to get some deals finalized. So when we're over there in June, we can bring the buyer and seller together and hopefully announce them with Governor McAuliffe. So yeah, a lot of work going on all around the world. We're really very, very proud of it. But again, the partnerships are key. I think we've learned over the last few years you can't do these things alone. You have to have the partners, and that's why things we're doing with natural resources on natural resources promotion, preservation, but also with commerce and trade on marketing and development are really, really key.
What are some of the other initiatives? I know you have, if someone goes on your website, and we're going to put that address up so they can easily find it, they'll find a whole list of initiatives that are being undertaken. The
two things that we're really focusing on is with Governor McAuliffe and building the new Virginia economy, as I'm sure you've heard many, many times, and that's what we're trying to do, is we become less reliant on federal dollars. From agriculture and forestry, it's domestic development, first and foremost, helping existing businesses, agribusinesses in the state expand, but also working with our partners at VEDP and others to attract new agribusiness forestry operations to the state. So that's that. Then on the international side, it's growing trade. Governor McAuliffe has said as part of the new Virginia Economy Initiative, he wants Virginia to be the #1 agricultural and forestry exporter on the East Coast. So we're building on that infrastructure that we launched in 2010 to have Virginia export products well known all around the world. So combination of domestic development and international trade are really the two foundations from which I operate every single day. In fact, when Governor McAuliffe asked me to stay on as secretary, he said he wanted me to spend the overwhelming majority of my day focusing on economic development, international trade, and that's why I have such a great team. Also, Sam Towle, again, helping me with the water quality issues, Chesapeake Bay, and a new addition to the team, Cass Rasnick, has come over and been an assistant secretary, and she's helping me with some of the initiatives in economic development and other areas as well. So. Great team, but domestic development and international trade are the two foundations which I work on every day.
When your colleague, Secretary Jones, was on just a few weeks ago, I was somewhat surprised when he said that Virginia was 12th in trade among the 50 states. And he spoke of the port, he spoke of Dulles, and
right.
he said and said how the governor was pushing to get that number from 12 on
High
up
up.
to a
Right.
much higher.
And that's part of that overall initiative, again, with the New Virginia economy. In agriculture, we just announced last month at his Governor McAuliffe's Ag Trade Conference that we had jumped from third to second on the East Coast as far as agricultural trade. We've reached another all-time high, 3.35 billion. So we jumped ahead of North Carolina, who's just about $3 billion a year. We're behind Georgia. Georgia's over $4 billion in trade. So we've got a long way to go, but we're doing a lot of great work with our private sector partners here and abroad to promote Virginia products into the global marketplace. So yeah, we're in the top 20 as far as overall trade, but I think we are the 9th largest agricultural exporter in the nation, and again, striving to be #1 on the East Coast. A lot of work, a lot of people involved in that, private sector and public sector, but it's a goal worth pursuing.
You know, one of the new initiatives that was undertaken by the General Assembly and by the executive branch, which I guess may be a couple of years away and coming to fruition, is the growing of hemp. And that for farmers to start that process. Tell our viewers about that if they are not aware of it. I'm sure if they're in the areas where they're growing, they're hearing about it.
Yeah, with hemp, the Congress passed the Farm Bill last year, 2014, that allowed for states to, their General Assemblies, to move forward with research projects to move toward commercialization at some point. So all that was allowed under federal law. Delegate Yost and the administration worked very closely, amongst others, this past year to get the industrial hemp bill approved in the General Assembly. So we're moving forward with that I think, allowance by the Congress to do that. We're not to commercialization yet, so people can't just go out and get hemp seed and start planting in their backyard. We've still got a few more steps to go, but working with partners at Virginia Tech, working with Virginia State University, JMU, James Madison is engaged in this as well, and working with stakeholders, Agribusiness Council, Farm Bureau, individual growers. We're now taking those steps to allow for the production of industrial hemp on a commercialized basis at some point in the future. Years and years ago, Virginia was a very well-known hemp producer. We know we can produce it here. But with the change in federal laws 75, 80 years ago, and basically killing the industry here in the United States, you're starting over. So with what Congress approved last year and what the General Assembly, we're taking those first steps. I'd like to think that within the next 5 years, we could start seeing some commercialized sales of industrial hemp to the marketplace. That's my goal. I will see if we can get there. But yeah, places in Southside Virginia, Southwest Virginia, that old tobacco belt where I'm from, I know I've already had some outreach from folks in Pennsylvania County and Halifax County about it. So we're taking those baby steps, but I think that we'll soon see the baby steps turn into real steps, and we'll go from there. But that's the backstory on industrial hemp.
Right. And if our viewers hadn't really tuned into any of the discussion on that maybe in the last couple of years, the killing of the hemp was because of the concern about marijuana.
Right.
And the industrial hemp is different from.
It has no or incredibly small amounts of the substance in marijuana that gives the intoxication effect. So this is all about making products that can be beneficial, rope, plastics and so forth, those type of things that can be made from industrial hemp. So again, a farmer can grow a product that can have value added somewhere along the chain and then sold into the marketplace. So it potentially gives our growers another option for growth and sales into the marketplace, and we know we can do it. I mean, the history, a little bit of history that I'm aware of goes back to the George Washington colonial days, and so the history's there. Things came to a grinding halt with the onset of marijuana and the change in federal laws. So we're starting over, but we know we can do it, and hopefully it'll give our growers some new avenues to grow and sell.
One of the initiatives on your website has to do with a fund, a development fund for agriculture and forestry. Tell Tell us something about that.
The APHID,
Yeah,
the
okay.
Governor's Agricultural and Forestry's Industries Development Fund. We call it the APHID for short. Yeah, it's a fund that we created about 3 years ago in the McDonnell administration, and been obviously working to enhance with Governor McAuliffe and the General Assembly the last year and a half. But it's a fund that we created, an economic development fund that is catered specifically to the unique industries that agriculture and forestry are. What we saw about 4 or 5 years ago were some economic development projects that in agriculture and forestry that weren't qualifying for the Governor's Opportunity Fund, say. Either their investment was too small or the jobs being created were too small, a combination of both. But because agricultural and forestry projects occur in rural areas, with investment tends to be a little bit smaller, the number of jobs being a little bit smaller, didn't mean that they shouldn't have their own fund or have their own incentives to move forward. So we created that. It's been incredibly successful so far. We've had investments over $2 million made by the fund, over $230 million in capital expenditures by the private sector. Over 1,400 jobs have been created and associated with the APHID. And the thing that I'm really most proud of is within that fund, an industry that is buying the raw product and adding value to it in agribusiness, they have to purchase at least 30% Virginia grown from our farmers. The funds that we've allocated so far and the projects that we've done over the last 2 years plus, 72% of the products purchased associated with the fund have been Virginia grown. So the bare minimum is 30. We're at 72% overall, so that's great. That gives our growers more opportunities, and obviously that agribusiness or that forestry operation is taking that raw commodity, that agricultural product or that wood product, and adding value and then selling into the marketplace. So really, really proud of the fund. And there's also a planning grant side of it as well, where we work with localities to help them plan for the future and strategically utilize their assets to grow. I think over the last 2 years we've allocated about $500,000 for funds to the localities to help them strategically utilize agriculture and forestry assets. 25 grants with 50 localities, or excuse me, 50 grants but 25 localities. So really, really good stuff going on in agriculture and forestry as far as that development fund is concerned. We're very proud of it and look to continue building on it with Governor McAuliffe.
Another one of those major initiatives, and we've talked about it when you were here before, is Virginia wines.
Yes.
And I know that's both in the export and in both the encouraging more restaurants and others here in the Commonwealth to have Virginia wines.
Wine industry has really grown tremendously over the last really 5 to 10 years. We're now over 250 wineries all around the state. We have urban wineries and close to downtown Norfolk. Then we have wineries.
You say urban?
An urban winery, a winery that's
Did not know that.
Yeah,
yes.
Mermaid Winery in Norfolk was the first in the state, and they've got grapes growing there, but they're utilizing other winemakers to help them with their wines. Anyway, that's just one example.
Yes.
But from Norfolk all the way to Southwest Virginia, the suburbs of Northern Virginia, where I'm from, some of the old tobacco lands in Pittsylvania County are now have grapes growing on them, and the wines being made there. So it's all over the state, and we're selling wines across the state more than ever before, around the country, particularly on the East Coast, from, so let's say, Boston to Atlanta. A real nice infrastructure in place for current sales, but also future growth. And then international. Our wines are available in the United Kingdom. London is the largest wine market in the world. Our wines are there. In fact, I will see our wines next week, and the U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom will be featuring some Virginia wines and Virginia foods while we're over there for an event at the embassy. And our wines are also available in Southeast Asia, particularly in China. A lot of work over the last few years with our international trade reps, our private sector partners, but a really great industry. And the thing also that I really like about the wine industry and our entire craft beverage industry, craft beer, distilled spirits, ciders, meads, is that you're not only seeing the growth there and the job creation at the sites where they're making these products, but the ripple effect out in these rural communities with gas stations, bed and breakfasts, hotels, motels. Everybody's benefiting from it. So really good agricultural development going on through our craft beverage industry, led by the wine industry, but fast-growing craft beer industry, fast-growing distilled spirits, and also cideries.
You know, whenever we hear or read about another 200 homes going in near an urban area, it causes some of us to wonder about, again, another one of your initiatives, farmland preservation.
Yes.
And what is that initiative? What does that initiative involve?
Yeah, we're losing, depending on which study you look at, we're losing somewhere between 50 and 100,000 acres of farmland every year to development or other uses. And every acre that goes away from production is, you know, less food on the table or produced from here in Virginia, or less commodities produced here in Virginia. And we're trying, nobody has anything against development. I mean, obviously it's new opportunities for people's homes or businesses or so
Certainly,
forth, but
yeah.
we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we're able to produce our own food, we're able to grow these crops and sell them in the global marketplace, which is generating opportunities here. But with the loss of farmland, you do run the risks. And so we've got the preservation of the Purchase and Development Rights Program at the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, which works with localities and farmers to help permanently preserve their lands. It's done strategically, coordinated, so it's not the state coming in and saying you shall do this, but it is that farm owner, that landowner, and the locality and the state working together to decide if we want to permanently preserve this farmland so it'll continue giving back to the community. There's about $1 million in the fund right now, but there was also some new money put into it by the General Assembly. Delegate Ed Scott and others led that effort during the last General Assembly session. So a great program, and it's going to be working again with our growing community and localities to permanently preserve these working lands, which generate products, they generate tax revenue and job opportunities without, you know, most of these are lands that don't have water and sewer. They're not requiring anything from the locality, so it's a win-win for both sides. Very proud of that program and look forward to growing it in the future and hopefully permanently preserving some outstanding working farmlands around the state.
You know, the initiative that the governor has that I'm sure involves several secretariats on preserving 1,000 treasures or whatever. I would think that some of those treasures are bound to be some farms, some unique farmlands.
There are. If you look at the release that the governor and Secretary Ward in particular put out last week, the word agriculture was in there once or twice. I do know that some of our most treasured lands in the state are those working agricultural lands. And again, I think about it, you know, every acre permanently preserved is outstanding. We all love parks. We all like forests. We all like places where you can go to seek refuge from the day-to-day grind.
Yes.
But I'm a little biased, obviously, coming from the background that I came from, growing up on a farm and being in agribusiness over the years, is if you can permanently preserve that working land, the one that's producing products, the one that's generating tax revenue, the one that's providing jobs, and asking for very little or anything in return from that locality, I think those are the type lands we really ought to be looking to permanently preserve first and foremost. So I'm hopeful that some of those 1,000 treasures that Governor McAuliffe and Secretary Ward and others will be going after will be these pristine, outstanding farms that are all around the Commonwealth.
You know, you mentioned, I think, 50 to 100,000 acres.
Depending on which study you look at, there's a 50 to 100,000 acre a year loss of farmland.
Approximately what percent is that? Is that a half a %?
Well, it's very small in the grand scheme of things. Virginia has over 8 million acres of farmland, and if you put agricultural lands and forest lands together, it's about 80 to 85% of the land mass of the state. So in the grand scheme of things, 50 to 100,000 acres isn't a lot, but there's the multiplier.
Yes.
If that's happening year after year after year after year, and you have increased encroachment from urban areas into rural areas, I mean, all you have to do is look at the greater Richmond area, some places. I know whenever I head home to Southside and down 360, I feel like the urbanization of that area is going further and further west down 360, and that's just one example. You can cite many, many others. So it's the multiplier. You just need to think about it a little bit that way, and we're blessed. We're able to feed and clothe ourselves, and you add the wood into it and have the frame over our house, the chairs to sit in, the cabinets. We're not in danger of losing that. But every acre we lose is lost. I mean, very rarely do you see a land that's sold for development, farmland or forest land sold to development, that doesn't go to something else. So something to think about.
You know, we could talk for an hour, but unfortunately, the time's going to be up in about a minute.
Okay.
What's kind of a closing message that you'd want to get out to make sure we don't just run out of time?
Just make sure that everybody knows the importance of agriculture and forestry. I've said it earlier, we all have to eat, we all have to have clothes, and we all have to have that roof over our head, the chair to sit in. So that's why they're the largest, 2 of the 3 largest industries in the state of Virginia. We're very, very blessed to have outstanding agricultural and forestry assets, and we need to do everything that we can to protect them, be it moving more product in the marketplace on the agricultural marketing side, or fighting fires, which our my colleagues at the Department of Forestry have done this spring during the fire season. Over 3,000 acres they've had to battle in forest fires, and the spring season's not over with yet. So again, we're very, very blessed with such agricultural and forestry assets, and we need to do everything that we can to protect them and promote them going forward so they can continue contributing to this new Virginia economy that the governor wants to see us create as we become less reliant on federal dollars.
Secretary Haymore, we wish you well on your upcoming trip.
Thank you.
And then on even the bigger trip coming up in the month of June, and in your work. And we look forward to having you back on This Week in Richmond to let our viewers know what's happening. And if they are following the media, they'll find release after release of what's happening. So
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I look forward to coming back.
Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com.
Alpha Natural Resources, a leader in mine safety and an environmental steward.
Haley Buick GMC in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Intelligent Illuminations, helping you manage, monitor, and control your streetlights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.